I've talked about the parity of the NFL this year, and here we are into the final 2 weeks of the NFL season. Only one team has clinched their division. The NFL is as close as it's ever been in recent years. And if you're an NFL fan, you should be loving this because anything could happen. And the famous saying will always be any given Sunday. We know that anything could happen on Sundays and, of course, occasionally Mondays and Thursdays. And now it's the end of the year, therefore, Saturdays. But any given Sunday, you can expect almost anything. And this Sunday is sure to show some fireworks. Welcome to our Christmas special here, and this is the Snap Count Show. Welcome to another installment, a very special installment of the Snap Count Show. This is our Christmas special. I am your host, Matthew Raridan, and with me today is none other than David Street,
Merry Christmas, y'all.
Ed Smith,
Go Pack Go.
and Thaddeus Lloyd.
Heyo.
And
I
first
just
things,
noticed Ed's Christmas light necklace.
that is exactly what I was going to say. First things first, I have to shout out Ed with that Christmas light necklace. You know, all we need is a leg lamp, in the background too, and it's just more festive. But
It's a major award.
it is. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We want to wish you guys a very Merry Christmas from all of us here at the Snap Count Show. I hope that you guys enjoy your time with your families and just really, understand what Christmas means and what it's all about. There will be football to be played on Christmas, if that's what you call it, if you look at those so-called games. But we're not going to be talking about those games today. We're going to be talking about a couple other games. But I want to dive into our first topic here because this is actually very important. This is, if you did not see it this last Sunday, and I'm sure you have, even if you're not an NFL fan, DK Metcalf of the Pittsburgh Steelers grabbing a fan and throwing what looked like a punch at the fan, which, first things first, that is something you never do. When you are an NFL player of that caliber, NFL player in general, you do not do that. You don't even interact really with fans, to be completely honest. I will dive into the backstory here in a bit, but I have to put what's on the surface first. And that is him laying his hands on a fan, which is a big no-no, just as it's a big no-no for a fan to do the same to him, okay? But with this 2-game suspension the NFL has handed out, he did appeal it. It has been upheld. It is still a 2-game suspension. DK Metcalf loses up to $45 million of his guarantees here in the future. And Ed, I got to really throw this out to you first. $45 million, of course, is a lot of money to us, and it is to DK. But how crazy is it, just this suspension and how it voided that?
So, first off, this is Goodell's NFL, and he is going to protect the fans more than any other commissioner I've seen in my lifetime. While Pete Rozelle and Paul Tagliabue, they were all about growing the game. Goodell is about, let's listen to the fans, and the fans had the biggest say, and fans this, fans that. Well, if the fans get a little too rowdy, there's a point where they cross a line. And DK Metcalf thought that this guy crossed a line. And yes, it is unfortunate for DK Metcalf that he is going to void that much of his salary. But it's a very sticky wicket, if you will, because people shouldn't be able to talk to you the way that he was talking to DK Metcalf. But in return, DK Metcalf is a much bigger, stronger, faster person than this guy, and he needs to act accordingly, knowing that that guy is just trying to get him riled up. And, it serves notice for the rest of the league that it will not be tolerated that you as a player have any sort of interaction in a negative sense with the fan whatsoever.
Yeah, am I shocked that it was upheld? By no means. They do have to set a precedent. Uh, do I think that maybe there could have been slightly tweaked to the outcome? Yes, but they still have to stand their grounds. But Thaddeus, this question is going to go for you. Is of that $45 million, 20, I want to say 25 million of it is the guarantees for next year, but a big chunk of it is actually his injury guarantees. So right as of right now, if he gets hurt, he does not get paid. That guarantee is gone. What does DK and the Steelers do from this point forward?
I I honestly don't know because he was a big target in the offseason, moving on from Seattle, and it was a big pickup by the Steelers. So we thought it would be really good because then we thought it was going to be Metcalf and Pickens, but then Pickens gets shipped off to Dallas, and then they're like, oh, okay, DK Metcalf's the number one now. But then now what we have is the Steelers are, they're kind of caught now because if the entire contract is basically, or half the contract is voided, what's he going to do? Is he going to go try to request a release kind of thing? Or he might be shipped off to another team. So it's going to remain to be seen, but I don't know if he's going to be on this team next year. Steelers, for some reason, have always had a wide receiver diva problem the past decade. Exactly. So it's going to be another story in the Steelers diva receiver legacy. Now, there's obviously diva receivers all over the league, but for some reason, the Steelers have had a really big problem with it. So they're probably going to have to ship him off. They can get a receiver in the draft. You find receivers a dime a dozen these days, apparently. So, and he'll probably move to another team, honestly.
Well, it's very detrimental because they're gonna be without him the last two games of the season, and you have 45-year-old Adam Thielen as your number one wide receiver pretty much right now. So it just shows you the Steelers have concerns. Does sound like though, as of right now, that I did just read that they actually plan to keep DK, and in fact, they do plan to actually restructure his contract so he could get his guarantees back. So, but that almost seems like they are, aiding him in some bit. But David, the question I have for you is the NFL though does kind of have a problem because whether it's the NFL or the Lions, because this fan has had negative interactions with DK the last 4 years, and it has been well known in the public. Why did this slip through the cracks this time?
To be honest, I'm I'm not entirely sure. But I will say this: I think two things can be true at once. Um, I think this fan is, if it's true that he's been harassing DK for the last few years, obviously he's wrong. He shouldn't do that. But it's also true that DK should have never put his hands on him. And in fact, I will say that not only am I not surprised that the appeal, that he's still going to be suspended. I think Metcalf is a complete dumbass for even thinking that he could appeal this suspension because as an NFL player or just someone working within an NFL organization, part of your job is knowing that you cannot physically touch anybody outside. Like you can't touch the fans are your customer base, and you can't touch a fan at all. Okay, like for my job, I work with customers. Okay, if I ever laid a hand on a customer, even if the customer said something that hit a personal nerve, I would get fired on the spot. If not fired, certainly receive a strike for my performance. So I don't really quite understand why we're showing some sympathy for DK Metcalf. I don't care what the fans said to him. I don't care if he said the most insulting thing to DK Metcalf. Again, you don't put your hands on a fan. I thought that was common sense.
Yeah, and if you watch the game and listen to the broadcast, hearing Tony Romo and Jim Nance, oh, look what our cameras caught. Well, it wasn't going to be just your camera that caught it. You
Mm,
are, as an NFL player, the cameras are on you 24/7, pretty much.
yeah.
Okay, so if their camera didn't catch it, a fan's camera would have, someone would have, and you have to be aware of that as an NFL player. You really do. I know I'm not an NFL player, but I know that. And yes, emotions do run high, and DK Metcalf has been known to be a diva, and it's crazy that it actually lasted this long into the season before it came out. But it can be very costly, not only financially for him, but playoff wise for the team. So that is something worth of note that we will mention here in a little bit. But nonetheless, don't put your hands on a NFL, or don't put your hands on a fan, or and quite frankly anyone. I mean, even if you're playing against an opponent, you shouldn't be swinging punches at them either, and you will get in trouble for that too. So, very very big hiccup by DK Metcalf. But on to some more pressing issues, and that is we are down to the last 2 weeks of the NFL season, which means, of course, whoever is going to win MVP or Coach of the Year is going to solidify it in these next couple weeks. And if you had asked us this question just a couple weeks ago, and we've even talked about it, who are we thinking Coach of the Year so far? Well, a couple weeks ago, it sounded like it was a shoo-in for Coach Shane Steichen of the Indianapolis Colts. If he asked us who the MVP was a couple weeks ago, I'm sure it's different than what it's going to be today. So here we are talking about it with 2 weeks left. And let's go ahead and start with the Coach of the Year. And David, I'm going to actually have you start this one here because I know you talked about on the show Shane Steichen, possibly Coach of the Year, shoo-in a couple weeks ago. Who do you think's possibly the front runner for the Coach of the Year?
So this is really tough because I think this is probably the we've probably had more legitimate Coach of the Year candidates than we've seen in quite a while. Like there's a bunch of candidates, and it comes down to these final guys for me, and that is Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDonald, D'Amico Ryans, and Liam Cohen. And even as I'm about to reveal my pick, you can make a case for any of these guys, but I'm going to go with Mike McDonald. Now, last week I talked about how the Seahawks are not as good as their record, indicates, because if you look below the surface, they turn the ball over a lot. They don't have a very good rushing offense. But if anything, I think that actually lends more of a case to Mike McDonald being the coach of the year, because as you crack the armor, you see the team isn't as good as we think it is. That to me just screams that they're doing great, especially because of the coach. Now, I believe that one of the things you need to look at when evaluating the coach of the year is what side of the ball does he specialize in, and how is that side of the ball performing. Mike McDonald is a defensive guy. In fact, the last time the Ravens had a good defense, Mike McDonald was the DC. Now, yes, it is true the Ravens have also dealt with a lot of injuries. I understand that, right? But Seattle quietly has a top three, if not top five defense, and that is in large part thanks to Mike McDonald. But also, as the head coach, you are responsible for everybody around you, not just your side of the ball. You're also responsible for the offense, and the offense, has been, even with Sam Darnold, who I don't think Sam Darnold has been. I don't want to spoil too much because we'll get into it later. But even with Sam Darnold, Seattle has still produced a top three, top five offense, scoring offense at least. But also the other thing you need to look at when it comes to Coach of the Year is like what decisions is he making that's actually directly impacting his team's performance? And I can't think of a better example than when the Seahawks elected to go for 2 points when they tied the Rams last time, and instead of, or excuse me, they were down by one. They could have tied it with an extra point, but instead they went for a two pointer. That was obviously a very bold call, and it worked. Now I understand that Mike McDonald is not an offensive guy; he doesn't call the offense, but I'm still going to give him credit because at the end of the day, he is the head coach, and all decisions have to go through him. So to sum up everything I said, um, I do believe that the Seahawks are not as good as their record indicates, but they still have a great record. They have a great point differential, and I think they are an example of a team that is clearly good, primarily because of the head coach. There's a lot of guys you can go with. The four guys I mentioned, I think they all have a shot, but I'm going to give the slightest edge to Mike McDonald.
Yeah, Thaddeus, you could essentially get a dartboard with all these head coaches that could possibly win this and throw a dart at it and possibly be right. But my question for you is, what are the chances a rookie head coach wins it this year? David mentioned Liam Cohen. You have Ben Johnson. You have Mike Vrabel. There's a lot of great when I say rookie coaches, with their first team, because Mike Vrabel obviously was a head coach before, but this is his first year with the Patriots. So, what are the chances a rookie head coach wins it?
I think they're very high. Now, personally, I'm gonna be biased here. I really think Kyle Shanahan should win Coach of the Year. He's never won Coach of the Year, first of all. So that's you. When you think elite coaches, you think Kyle Shanahan, right? But he's never won the award. He's done an incredible job, I think, with the 49ers this year, especially with the injuries on defense. Now, Robert Saleh has helped out, and apparently he's a lock for being a head coach next year. We're going to see about that. Hopefully, the 49ers retain him. So I personally think it should be Kyle Shanahan, but I'm actually going to say I really do think this year a rookie head coach will win the job, and an actual rookie head coach will win it, and I do think it will be Ben Johnson. He was the number one, most recruited or hottest candidate last year, and he's taken the Bears from being a joke. Pretty much, they've only made the playoffs, one time in the past 15 years, pretty much, to an actual competent franchise. They've been a good team this year, and it's all because he's gone down back to fundamentals, running the ball, playing good defense. Dennis Allen, being the defensive coordinator, was a great hire for him, and those two have just done so well together this year that I really don't see. I mean, I can see Vrabel winning it, but I really think with the media biasness around it, I do think Ben Johnson is going to win the award because obviously he was the highly recruited one. He was like I said, the Bears just have not been good. Like, when was the last time we thought the Bears had a good season, right? They even when they went to the playoffs like 6 years ago, we didn't think they were that good. So I just think it's just been a phenomenal job done by Ben Johnson, even with Caleb Williams, not being the number one quarterback a lot of people expected him to be. He still turned him around, kind of like what Liam Cohen's turned Trevor Lawrence around. But I think Ben Johnson's just done such an incredible job. I don't see how he doesn't win it.
Yeah, I agree. Ed, you want to give your 2 cents on the conversation?
Pete Carroll. I'm kidding. Pete Carroll's been awful this year. There are a lot of points that Thaddeus brought up that I would say really fits the bill for Ben Johnson, because that is not only a team that you have a head coach who came in and developed a quarterback that team has never had the upper echelon of quarterback in this league. Outside of, say, Sid Luckman before the forward pass was as prevalent as it is now. You've got the culture issue and that's been an underlying thing. They've always played little brother to the Packers, and to have Ben Johnson be a guy that says, no, we're just as good, if not better, than the Packers. But I'm gonna throw a bone out here. I don't know if this is really going to be the pick, but Cohen down in Jacksonville, holy cow! I This is a franchise that has only been in the playoffs twice since 2008. And here he is in his first year. He's taken the golden child, which, Trevor Lawrence, when he was in college, you know, when he got to the NFL, he had never lost a game. In high school and in college, and everybody talked about how he had all the intangibles and he was the guy for here on out. But it was it wasn't it was good. It wasn't great. There was some development, then there was some backtracking. They went to the playoffs, got the big lead, and then lost in the second half to the Chargers. That all this stuff happened with Trevor Lawrence, but here Cohen comes in and he's actually, I'm not going to say fixed, but actually created a development of Trevor Lawrence that we had not seen of him up to this point. And they are running away with the AFC South because of it. And it's not like he's putting all of the entire team on Lawrence's shoulders. It's the defense as well. They're playing lights out on that side of the ball too. So to have that development plan, to have that culture plan, and be able to grow and execute the other side of the ball than what you're known for, that deserves a lot of consideration. So in my book, Cohen and Ben Johnson, I think they're neck and neck for this thing. Yes, Vrabel's doing great up in New England, but I take a look at that winning percentage schedule and I'm like, who can't beat up on the Sisters of the Poor the entire season and look good. These two guys, I think, really are neck and neck for the top spot in Coach of the Year.
Matthew, before you reveal your Coach of the Year, can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, so I think something that we really need to consider, that we really need to have an understanding of, and I'm not asking anybody here to change their minds at all. I would never do that. Thaddeus and Ed, I highly respect why you guys picked your respective guys, but this is what we need to consider. We know that in pretty much every sport, the Coach of the Year basically means the coach who entered with no expectations and then surpassed everybody's expectations. And in essence, because of that, it's kind of like robbed a lot of coaches, not just for the NFL, but of any sport, coaches who actually did do the best job of coaching, but because they didn't have low expectations, they didn't win the reward. Like, for me, I feel very confident in picking Mike McDonald. No, the Seahawks did not have low expectations in the way that the Jags and the Bears have. But if the award is truly the best coaching job, who has done the best coaching, that's why I'm sticking with my guy, McDonald. So again, I'm not asking anybody to change their minds, but Thad and Ed, like, you guys still feel confident about your picks?
Yeah, I do. Even though I will say at the current betting odds, Mike Vrabel is the front runner right now.
Not surprised.
Vegas talks, but for me, who I think's going to win is not who I think should win. I do think that Ben Johnson will win it. Just what he's done with Chicago, it truly is insane. And here he is, possibly on the cusp of a number one seed. I don't think any of us could have ever predicted that in this season. Who I think should win it, and Thaddeus would like me for this, is Kyle Shanahan. Because you look at what he's done this year with losing a starting quarterback, granted he's back now, losing your top 3 receivers to injuries, losing the best linebacker in the game in Fred Warner. I mean, it was injury after injury, and the fact that he has them also here still possibly can get a number one seed is just crazy. You look at Cincinnati, their star quarterback goes down. They suck. You look at Indy, ever since Daniel Jones. I mean, that's a bad example, but you look.
Daniel Jones, remember that he's Daniel Jones and went back to sucking.
Yeah, I do kind of have to put that out there. But you look at a lot of these teams when their star quarterbacks went down this year, uh, they did not do good. So the only anomaly of that is the Niners. So you have to give props to Kyle Shanahan and that whole coaching staff and the whole team for really sticking together and pulling out all these victories. And here they are, possibly a number one seed just in a couple weeks.
One point, if I could, is it feels like there is a lot of excitement about these first year head coaches with their teams. And yes, we're talking about Mike Vrabel, having the betting odds. Thaddeus and I talked about Ben Johnson and William Cohen and Mike McDonald. David talked about that. But are we overlooking Sean Payton? I mean, he has taken a division that was dominated by the Chiefs and turned his Denver Broncos into a number one seed to this point. So and it's with the other side of the ball than what he's known for, and also creating the development for Bo Nix. So I think there's some of those same considerations I talked about William Cohen. About Cohen could be said about Sean Payton, but do people forget about him because it's Denver and not an East Coast or one of these splash hires?
Oh, I'm so glad Ed brought this up because I want to answer because I basically talked about this a few weeks ago. Sean Payton is a great coach. He should be nowhere near the Coach of the Year award this year. And I hear what you say that for the first time in a long time they're going to win the division and not Kansas City. Okay, but here's the thing: how much of the credit should really go to Sean Payton? I understand that when I talked about Mike McDonald, I talked about how the coach is responsible for everybody, not just the side of the ball you're focusing on. And yes, Sean Payton deserves a ton of credit for keeping Vance Joseph, even when a couple of years ago, everybody, justifiably so in my opinion, wanted him gone after giving up a 70 burger, okay? But again, it's like, I think the credit more so goes to Vance Joseph because the Denver defense has been really good. And Ed, I know we texted about this, so maybe you can kind of, if you remember what your text said, kind of expand on that. But Denver's offense has not been great, and Bo Nix, I won't say he's been terrible, but he also hasn't really taken that second-year leap. So if I could just sum it up, it's like, okay, is it really Sean Payton, or is he just kind of riding the coattails of his defense, of his defensive coordinator?
I get what you're saying on that, and there is the coordinator of the year award that because there's an award for everything.
Yes.
I would say that Sean Payton, the fact that he has stuck beside Vance Joseph shows some consistency and some growth for Vance Joseph because that defense got a whole lot better once Sean Payton got there from where Vance Joseph was before Sean Payton came to Denver. So with that in mind, right now the Broncos are if I remember correctly, the number one team in hitting the quarterback. I mean, that is an outstanding change from where Vance Joseph was as a D coordinator to where he is now. And the fact that it's playing that complementary game with what Sean Payton is doing on offense, I think that goes to Sean Payton being able to see the full picture, not just the side of the ball that he's most associated with.
Yeah, absolutely. And of note, the Broncos are also on pace for a record too for sacks as a defense. So that's something of note. Really quick before we get into these games and scenarios is MVPs right now. how are we seeing this race, and can the last couple weeks also dictate who wins this award? And Thaddeus, I'll let you start on this one. So right now, who do you think's leading the MVP race?
So, as I thought, there's really only two MVPs right now. Per Vegas odds, Matthew Stafford is supposed to take it home right now. He's got the highest, and then behind him is Drake May. And then after that, it's very, very long odds for anybody else. So I really do think it's coming down to those two. Because both of those teams, they're top of each conference. Both quarterbacks have played really well for the most part this season. I want to give it to Matthew Stafford, but the problem is that I don't think Drake May's had a bad game this year at all. Really, Matthew Stafford's had at least one or two games, like versus Carolina, where he just kind of collapsed. So I do want to give it to Stafford, but for some reason, Drake May's like not had anything bad this year. Like it seems like he's just done a really good job. So I really don't know. I presumably also want to go with Stafford for this, but Drake May could be a sneaky pick if in terms of being second right now.
David?
Yeah. So, I mean, if I was forced to pick, I'll probably take Matthew Stafford. But I do have an interesting question, which I'll have you answer, Ed. So here's the thing, okay? Again, I would probably pick Matthew Stafford because if we're just going by the numbers, it's clearly Matthew Stafford. But here's a problem. The Rams are third place in their division as of right now, okay? Whereas the Seahawks are in first place in their division. But Sam Darnold doesn't exactly have MVP numbers. And I think, yeah. And then, last year, and this is going to be the question that I give to Ed, okay? Last year was kind of unusual, an anomaly, if you will, where Lamar Jackson clearly had better numbers than Josh Allen. He was the first quarterback in NFL history to have 40-plus touchdown passes and fewer than 5 interceptions. And yet the MVP went to Josh Allen anyway, precisely because Josh Allen elevated his team, or like he had a worse supporting cast. And I would certainly agree with that. So my question to you, Ed, is: was last year kind of just a one-time thing? Was it just a kind of an anomaly, or do you think the NFL is now moving in the direction of, hey, we're no longer going to consider if you have the best numbers. Now we're actually going to take your supporting cast into account now?
Well, having the best numbers in the league at any year, that's what the offensive player of the year is for. You know, that needs to be a different award than the actual MVP of the league. So I'm perfectly okay with the voters seeing last year Josh Allen being the difference maker in how far the Bills go versus Lamar Jackson, who had phenomenal numbers. He still wound up second in Offensive Player of the Year award to Saquon Barkley. Uh, so I have no issue with the player with the best stats being deferred to the Offensive Player of the Year, and then the voters actually seeing the true value of the player and are they the are they the absolute best player of the year, the most valuable player of the year, despite what the numbers actually say, in a stat padding league, whether it be rushing or receiving or whatever the focus is of that offense.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with that. I mean, it seems like lately, the offensive player of the year seems to be a receiver who will never win MVP or something like that. But yeah, I mean, Matthew Stafford has been very valuable to his team. I mean, keep in mind, this was a guy who had a very, very bad back injury that wasn't really expected to do much because of that injury. And here he is leading the Rams to a very, very close first place finish. Granted, they're at third now. They're not layups, but he plays the Falcons and he plays the Cardinals the last 2 games. That could help his numbers. But I think right now you would have to go with Sam Darnold. I really do, because his team is in first. And what he did against the Rams just this last week, it was impressive enough to help him get there. So if you were to have me guess right now, I'd say Sam Darnold. I mean, it could be a toss up, but I'll just say right now, Sam Darnold has to be leading the way. Thaddeus,
For the specific,
MVP.
yeah, I mean, I did say Matthew
Oh,
Stafford.
my apologies. Sorry, Ed.
So I think it's going to come down to whether or not the Patriots wind up with the 1 seed. Because if the Patriots wind up with the 1 seed, then it's going to go to Drake May.
Yeah, yeah, and that could play, factor in both off Coach of the Year and MVP. It really could, because the Jaguars could also be there. Jaguars get the number 1 seed. Who knows? Liam Cohen could get that. So it's of note.
Does anybody remember how many years Bill Belichick and Tom Brady had both of those awards at the same time? Did that ever happen?
2007 had to have been a year, right? Because that was the year they had the undefeated regular season.
Okay. So
And I
I mean,
think
that would be match. That would just be matching to that duo, and of course, all the Patriot fans are going to come out of the woodwork. See, we're back, and I'm like, get a better schedule.
Yeah, there's layers to it.
so.
Yeah.
If let me ask you guys this: if a defensive player does win MVP, who do you think it would be? And I'll go first. I think it would be Daniel Hunter of the Houston Texans, because he's the best player, frankly, for the best defense in the league. I don't think he's going to win MVP. I don't think we'll ever see a defensive player win MVP, at least not for a long while. But it's just, for me, it's as simple as the best player on the best defense. Ed, it seems like you don't agree either with Hunter being the best player on that defense, or just him winning MVP if a defensive player were to win MVP.
I disagree with both of those claims because Will Anderson Jr. is a monster on that defense.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about uh, MVP on defense, how can you not go with Myles Garrett, who is going to break this sack record? It's just a matter of who is it going to be.
Are you talking about the same Myles Garrett who plays for the Browns team that has a losing record and won't come close to making the playoffs?
I understand. I understand what you're saying there. I get it. But what did Strahan get for his fake record? I still call it a fake record because Favre gave it to him, and Gastineau's still pissed.
Yeah.
So as far as it has to go. If an MVP is going to be on the defensive side of the ball, it has to be the absolute best defensive player in the league. And when you have Myles Garrett, who's about to eclipse 21 and a half sacks for his season, he's the only possible option that we could be talking about.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'd concur to that too. So, Myles Garrett is a beast. I mean, he's got 2 games left. He'll easily get it this next week against my Steelers. I mean, he's going against a third stringer. So, I mean, most starters and double teams can't stop him. You think a third stringer is going to? I don't think so. So, Myles Garrett for sure, and props to him what he's done this year. Really quick, I got to get to the next topic before we get to these games. This week, we are expected to see, some playoff scenarios play out here. And the first one that comes to mind is the Steelers and the Ravens. Ravens lose this week. They're officially out. Steelers are officially in. Steelers win this week. Even with the Ravens win, the Steelers officially make it. The Ravens are out. The Ravens tie. They also miss out too. Those ties can be very pivotal. Ed knows a little bit more about that too. But that's the first one that comes to mind. Ed, other playoff scenarios at hand.
So when we're talking about getting in and confirming that you're in on the NFC, there are two spots left open with two teams really hanging on by a thread. Those two teams hanging on by a thread are the Lions and the Buccaneers. They really need the Packers and the Panthers to just mess the bed for the next 2 weeks and have them win games for them to get in, because it's still almost a lock for the 7 teams of the NFC playoffs. The rest of it is about seeding, and you know that is something that we can really dive deep into next week, because things are going to change wildly over this weekend. And right now, we're just trying to figure out who it is that we are going to be seeing come January.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's jump into these games. We got 2 games to preview tonight. And these are very big games as far as the seeding goes, like Ed alluded to. And the first one we have to talk about is the Texans at Chargers. And this is a great matchup. It really is, because these two teams are in very interesting spots where they are just looking out from their division, but they are in the wild card right now, and a win could help them possibly get back into winning their division. Right now, if the Texans win, I believe, do they flip flop the Chargers, or are they tied right now? Yeah, they're 10-5. The Chargers are 11-4. So a win here for Houston can change that seeding enough, and they would hold the tiebreaker against the Chargers. So that is very big here. But these two teams, this is a great time to be playing each other, because the Chargers winners of 7 of the last 8. Houston has the most lights out defense right now in the NFL. It's just going to be a great game, and also great coaches uh, coaching this game too, with Jim Harbaugh and D'Amico Ryan. So you know what you're going to expect. You're going to expect a chess match between these two coaches, because they are just that smart in the game. They don't let points go off the board. They take the points when it matters, and that's what makes them very smart coaches. And the thing that I am curious the most about in this game is, are we going to see a repeat of what happened in the playoffs last year? What this Houston defense did against Justin Herbert, it flustered him. And it could easily happen again this game. So that's my biggest thing that I want to see is, does that Houston defense continue to do that against Herbert? Or has he learned, has he matured now under year 2 with Harbaugh, that it's not going to affect him? As much as I love Justin Herbert being an Oregon Duck and everything, I'm going to go with Houston's defense just controlling him and really controlling the tempo of this game. I think we're going to see a low scoring game. I say low scoring game. This, it could be high to some, but I just think Houston's defense is going to be a little too much for the Chargers. Give me Houston winning this game 15-10 and overtaking the Chargers for that wild card spot and itching just a little bit closer to their division. Thaddeus.
Yeah, that it's a really fun matchup. But what I want to look at is what the Texans did last Sunday. They barely lost to the Raiders, which is a really, really bad look this year, because the Raiders are awful. And I I don't know how, but the Raiders were not expected to even put up 10 points against the Texans last week, and they ended up putting up 21. So the
Uh,
Texans
uh,
offense, huh?
They won.
you know they beat the Raiders, right?
Yeah, I know they beat them, but
Sorry.
barely. They were 14 and a half point favorites.
I think you said they barely lost to them,
Barely
but you
lost.
Oh, yeah,
probably
Yeah.
that's what I meant. Yeah,
you
they
always
barely won. My bad. Yeah,
all
but
good.
yeah, so they barely won, and people thought, early on in the season the Texans offense was having struggles. CJ Stroud gets hurt. Davis Mills comes in and actually does a decent job. CJ Stroud comes back and the offense looks about the same. But then, like, okay, the offensive struggles are gone. No, they are not. They did not do well against the Raiders. All right, the offense scored 1 touchdown, I think, in that game. So it's going to be really hard to trust that. But I do think they are going to have a bounce back game. I'm also going to take the Texans as well. Obviously, the Chargers had a big blowout loss against the Cowboys, but I just trust that
Win.
Texans defense more. They had an off game against the Raiders for that.
A blowout win, Thaddeus.
Well,
You
You're
done did it
confusing
stop
the
again.
pointing it
fans.
out. Stop pointing it out. All right, I've had a rough day already. But yeah, no. So they had a blowout win against the Cowboys, and I Herbert has been good this year, but when he doesn't have offensive line help, he really struggles. And this Texans defensive line is really, really good. So give me the Texans in, like what Matt said, in a low scoring game, but I'm going to go even lower. I'm going to go college football playoff score, Texans winning 10-3.
Ed, like I said, this is kind of a coin flip as to which coach is going to outsmart the other.
Mhm.
Who do you think ends up having the edge in this game?
These teams are built so similarly uh, when you're looking at that. And if you look at the records of both of these teams, neither one of these teams has lost since before Thanksgiving. And it isn't like they've only played the most terrible teams. Yes, they both played the Raiders. Let's get that out of the way. But they also both played the Chiefs, and they both won those games. Very similar fashion. Uh, I mean, the Texans even uh, beat Buffalo. They went into Indianapolis and won there. They are they are streaking here just as much as the Chargers are. But believe it or not, the Chargers are giving up fewer points than what the Texans are. Uh, the Texans have a great defense, and they are very flustering because just like David was talking about before, you've got Hunter on coming off the edge, but to my point, you got Will Anderson roaming around on the other side, and that's freeing up Hunter to get the 13 sacks that he's sitting at so far for the season. So I think it's going to come down to the savviness of the coaching, and I think Harbaugh just has that one little trick up his sleeve that he is going to be able to unleash in this game to put it in the Chargers' favor. Right now, the line is at 39.5. I'm in agreement. Everybody in the world needs to bet the under on, on 39.5. So I'm going to put this at 17-13. The Chargers get it done.
David, this may sound a little confusing, so bear with me. But do you think the quarterback with the better stat line in this game loses?
Yes. And I'll. Oh, you want to continue?
No, I was going to ask. You go. You tell me who and why.
So I think Justin Herbert will produce the better passing numbers, but I'll give you something that will confuse you even more. I think not only are the Chargers going to lose, I don't think it's going to be particularly close. And I will reveal my score prediction in just a few moments. So first off, the reason why I'm making the Texans over the Chargers is because at this point, I'm going with the team that has an elite unit, and the Texans have by far the best defense in the NFL. I know we've debated before about who has the best defense, the Broncos or the Texans. Well, I think with the season about to come to a close, I think we can all agree Houston has the best defense in the league, and the Chargers are having a very good season. But I can't point to a single unit of theirs that would qualify as elite. And then also, Matthew, I think we were talking before the show about how the Chargers actually have one of the worst supporting casts in the NFL, and yet they are 11-4. So that's the kudos to the job that Jim Harbaugh has done, and also and also in fairness, Justin Herbert as well, to give him credit. But it's because of that bad supporting cast they have that I fully expect this Houston defense to just have their way with Justin Herbert all day or all night. I don't know if it's a day game or night game, but just have their way with him. And so I think Herbert will produce quote unquote better stats just in terms of like efficiency and all that, but it's not going to matter in the end because I am taking Houston over the Chargers 36-15. And by the way, the game is actually going to be a lot worse than that 21 point uh, you know deficit.
I mean, that's definitely a high score game. So, I mean, we'll see if
Keep an eye on the special teams.
yeah,
Keep an
yeah.
eye on the special teams.
Dicker the kicker.
Uh, and Sammy Fairbairn,
Yeah,
these two teams, they are the number one and number two field goal kicking teams in the NFL right now.
yeah.
So who's going to settle for the field goals
Mm.
versus getting the touchdown?
Well, and that's why they trust to take the points because they're almost
Yeah.
guaranteed points with those numbers. So,
Yeah, neither of the coaches are Dan Campbell, so we'll definitely see some points taken.
yeah, definitely. All right, to our last and final game here, and our very own Thaddeus Lloyd is gonna love this one, but it is the Chicago Bears at the San Francisco 49ers. We've talked about both these coaches. We've talked about both these teams several times this episode. I'm essentially going to let Thaddeus take the floor here, and give us not only your prediction, but what are the Niners going to bring to the table in this game to stop the Bears?
This is a really fun matchup, in my opinion. Now, with the context that the 49ers haven't played the greatest competition, now, obviously, we knew going into the year they had the weakest schedule. They haven't played the greatest competition, but they have not lost since October. Now, they had a bye week as well, but they have not lost since October. The past two games, they're the first team in NFL history to put up over 80 points in 0 punts. They have not punted in 3 weeks, I think. So there's that. Now the defense has been a little bit of a struggle. Obviously, losing the best linebacker in the game, and then Nick Bosa, one of the top 5 defensive linemen in the game, hurts you on the defense. But Robert Saleh has done a really great job this year of just scheming up guys and getting younger guys, basically nobodies, to play really good football. So the problem a lot of see is obviously in the NFC. We've got a whole bunch of it's very crammed at the top, and like the seating, it's never been this wild before. So any of the top 7 or any of the top 6 seeds can get the number 1 seed, which is just insane. So, which includes both the 49ers and the Bears. It's wild to think that the 49ers could still get the 1 seed even in the NFC West, which currently might be the best division not only in football but at least in recent memory. You got 3 teams with all less than 4 losses, basically. I don't know if we've seen that in a long time. So, and then you got the Bears, who obviously also only have like 3 or 4 losses this year, and they're playing really good team football. The matchup, like what we said with the Chargers and Texans, I'm going to say it's the opposite for this game. You want to take the over for this because both defenses are not good. Now, the Bears defense overall has been good, but statistically, they're not great in pass or rush defense. It's really been their takeaways. And I don't think they were able to get a takeaway against the Packers, but they were resilient enough to stop them when it mattered in the fourth quarter last week. Same thing with the 49ers. The 49ers started to they gave up, a lot of points versus Philip Rivers, and people were not expecting that at all. But they were just getting outclassed until the fourth quarter when the 49ers offense just took over and, as per Philip Rivers tradition, had to throw a fourth quarter interception because he was down multiple touchdowns because his defense special teams gave up on him. So there was that. But both these defenses are serviceable, but they're not great. So you're going to see both these offenses probably take over both games. I really trust the Bears' run offense against the rush defense of the 49ers. The Bears' rushing offense is pretty deadly, especially when we saw that 2 weeks ago against the Eagles, where they just ran all over that Eagles defense. And then you have the 49ers, who have a pretty balanced attack, but Brock Purdy throwing 5 touchdowns, being only the third 49ers quarterback to ever do that. They're really deadly as well. And he's doing it with, B tier receivers, Juwan Jennings, Kendrick Bourne. Ricky Pearsall was out for that game too. So it's just kind of crazy how much firepower they're producing without a lot of top guys. Now it helped to get I go opposite again. It helped to have George Kittle back, but its offense is really explosive, especially with Christian McCaffrey. Maybe doing it a second time to be part of the 1,000 club. Being the first player to do it twice. I think he's 175 yards away from doing that. So this will be a really high-scoring shootout matchup. I'm going to obviously the 49ers are still trying to chase the Seahawks now for not only the NFC West, but the number 1 seed, while the Bears are keeping the Packers at bay. The last year, the 49ers won in a blowout game, I think 38-17. It's not going to be that. I think the Bears offense is going to expose the 49ers defense even more. It really hurts me, but I'm going to go with the Bears on this one. Give me the Bears 38-35 in a really big shootout.
David, I'm going to ask you this so Ed doesn't have PTSD, but this year we've already seen about 5 times Caleb Williams and the Bears come back from behind to win the games. What lead would be safe for the Niners to win this game?
What lead?
Yeah.
17. I'm going to say 17.
Being the magic number, I could see that because, what was it, 10 last week with about 2 minutes left, and they overcame that. So you can't really count them out. But, David, that's my point. You can't count out this Bears team. I never thought I'd say that. So how are you seeing this game play out?
Yeah, so when it comes to the Bears and the 49ers, I think there is a sort of high that you experience when you're so close to achieving something great. And for the Bears, that high is clinching the NFC North. Now they haven't done it yet. They've clinched the spots in the playoffs, but they haven't clinched the NFC North just yet. But they know they're just so close. They can just taste it. That it does. I feel like that does give them an advantage over the 49ers as far as mentally speaking, because it gives them that extra push to go out and take something that nobody thought was possible. I think coming into the season, the favorites, of course, were the Lions. Now they may not even make the playoffs, and the Packers are up there as well. Nobody expected the Bears to potentially win the division, let alone make the playoffs. And now they're this close to doing it. Now I say all that, and you might think that I'm going to predict a blowout for the Bears, and I'm not. I think it's going to be a close game as well. I agree with that in the sense that it will be a close game, but I think it's going to be just a very standard, average football game as far as the score goes. So give me the Bears over the 49ers 31-24.
All right. Ed, how are we seeing this?
Well, my best scenario for this game is Bane. Bane needs to come in and just destroy the stadium with both of these teams in it. So I hear what you guys are saying, and just to put it out there, I'm gonna
So you know who he's picking.
I'm picking that team from Chicago. I don't want to even say the name.
Almost Indiana here soon.
Maybe. And the reason is this. That is, he brought it up. The turnovers that the team from Chicago has been able to do to have all this season, they are the number one in turnover differential in the league. I think the biggest thing on top of that is the fact that both of these teams are in the top 10 as far as time of possession. And that is going to be the stat that really tilts this game because that is what both of these teams want to do. They want to run the ball, they want to control the clock, they want to limit possessions of the other team. And with the way that Chicago has been turning the ball over this season as a whole, especially after all the momentum and confidence that they gained in that last game that we won't talk about ever again, uh, then I'm going to take the Bears, and I think their momentum is going to carry them to really just, I don't want to say destroy, but it's going to be an ugly game for the 49ers. I'm going to take this game, which right now is sitting at 50 and a half on the over under. I'm going to say take the over and the Bears be 38-17.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, I've had no issues picking the Bears actually for the most part of this year. They've really have done nothing to have me go against them, but I am going to be the outlier in this game. The reason why is, and there's a couple reasons, but everything has to line perfectly. But Caleb Williams has done a lot of great things this year, a lot of great things in doing a lot of right things. However, though, he's not yet at that superstar level. And I think that the Niners are going to slow him down this week. Believe it or not, I know the Niners don't have the best defense, but what they did just the other night against Jonathan Taylor, only allowing 46 yards against him, is impressive. Granted, Chicago has two running backs that you have to worry about. But just what I was able to see with them against Indy was nice and is a flash of some hope for Thaddeus's Niners. But Caleb Williams at one point is going to get stumped. I'm not saying this is going to change the trajectory of their season, but I think this week he does get stumped against the Niners. I truly do. I think Robert Saleh is going to draw up a great game plan against Caleb Williams in this offense. So, yes, I'm going to be the outlier here. And not only am I going to be the outlier on who I pick, I'm going to be the outlier on the score here. I see it only being 24-14 Niners. It's not going to be super high because of the time of possession. I think that holding on to the ball is going to limit a lot of points for this game. So, and what Christian McCaffrey is doing Christian McCaffrey things. And as long as the ball is going in his hands, a lot of the clock is going off too, because you could count on him to hold on to that ball. So give me the Niners in this game, 24-14, and to round things out. So, but nonetheless, going to be an interesting one.
Yeah. And then lastly, before we head on out of here, I do have our records. It was a pivotal week for us. And Ed and I went 3-0, and then David and Matt went 1-2. Actually, no, Matt went 2-1. Sorry. So that brings the total right now. David in fourth at 16-34, having his record. Ed in third, 23-27. Matt evened out his record again. He's at 500 at 25-25. And then I am 4 games ahead now, 29-21.
So basically, Matthew is imitating his NFL team, is what you're saying.
Hey,
Exactly.
He's the Mike Tomlin of picks.
19 years, baby. All right. 22 years as a team, okay? I don't want anybody to hate. I will say this, and not to sound like a homer, but the Steelers do hold the record for the most consecutive years without finishing last in their division. I get it. We play in the same division as the Browns. They are just so awful, but we have.
Congratulations, you weren't the worst team.
Exactly, and we haven't been in some time.
Well, every division has that one really bad team, so.
Yeah.
Well, except for the NFC South, in the sense that every team in that division is bad.
Yeah, just bleh. But yeah, believe it or not, the Carolina Panthers could make the playoffs, guys. So we'll be talking about that next week for sure. But mathematically, it does sound like I'm almost about out of this. So we'll see, though, Thaddeus, as these last couple of weeks play out. We only had 2 games today, but we appreciate you guys tuning in on this Christmas special. Once again, I do hope that you guys have a very Merry Christmas with all of your families. Please continue, though, to hit that like and subscribe button, share these videos, and let us know your predictions for the games, as well as MVPs, Coach of the Years, and shoot, pretty much almost any award out there right now that there is. Let us know your thoughts. But until next time, guys, that is the final whistle. We'll catch you next week.
Merry Christmas.
God